After weeks of sending calls, emails, letters by parents and by some parishioners to the Diocese of Orlando requesting transparency since this news broke on March 26 when they announced the closure, one thing is for sure: the Divine Mercy Catholic Academy families and those parishioners that supported the school financially and otherwise will say goodbye to a legacy of 57 years on May 28th when it closes its doors for the last time.
At one time, the Space Coast had tens of thousands of employees. Many of them were Catholic, working families. Schools and parishes were constructed for the capacity, especially the schools with young families. And so those demographics have changed. And I know people say that, there's hundreds of thousands of people that have moved into Brevard County over the past few years. They're not moving to that area. And if they were, we still wouldn't see year over year enrollment declines.
According to reports, the real estate market in this area is pretty hot.
The two main areas where people are going to live are probably Merritt Island. You put a house in the market in Merritt Island right now, it sells in a day. People are moving to Merritt Island. So to say that, and then the other road that goes out from the west of the Space Center is Titusville. Titusville is growing by leaps and bounds right now. No, Catholic education is not as important to this generation's parents as it was to previous generations. I think for whatever reason, it was more important. So 4 Catholic schools could easily be supported in generations prior. And that's a little different now. I think there's a much more global problem right now when you look at the fact that 70% of Catholics don't go to Mass every week. So what is the church doing on a grander level to make sure that, I don't know, I can't say I've been to every Catholic church in the country by any means, but most Catholic churches I've ever gone to in any area of the country, you walk in and it's mostly the older generation. There's not a lot of young people in the Catholic Church. And so where are we going to be 10 or 20 years from now if the church doesn't do something to engage young people?
I understand you have been looking at the numbers throughout the course of the decade, but when did it actually start and you decided, hey, we are closing down?
Well, when our enrollment dropped down to 137 students this year, that was a very critical moment. Okay. And there were funding issues there. And then it wasn't until probably December that we realized, based on the new criteria, that the school wouldn't qualify for the second round of PPP support. So, it started to kind of become evident as mid-year or end of the mid-year school year, but end of the calendar year started to come through. And so, those conversations started to evolve, but in all actuality, when is the right time to make that kind of announcement? I mean, when is the right time? So, you announce it 2 months earlier so that this angst and pain and grieving that people feel at the local level goes on for longer. It was announced in a time frame that it was before we were doing any of our teacher contracts. So our teachers have opportunities in the local schools, and they are in process of being interviewed and rehired at other schools. We knew that enrollment at the other schools would be able to manage the parents, or welcome them, I should say. So if our goal is to continue them in Catholic education, disrupting the school year earlier, prior to standardized test scores, prior to a lot of other things, it would not have been productive. And so there really is no right time. I'm not the person that actually did it. It was a collaborative decision with the pastor, the finance council, the community, the local administrative community.
But for some parents, things just don't add up.
He was notified of the school closing the day before our principal and we were, which was Friday the 26th, I think. A week before Good Friday, whatever that date was. I'm pretty sure it was the 26th. That was when the parents got an email. The school board didn't even get any advance notice. The principal found out that day. The parish office found out that day. But we did find out straight from Father Kenny that he found out via, I think, phone call the day before. He wouldn't tell us who or the nature of the communication, but he made it sound like it was not his choice, and he was told that the school was shutting down from the diocese. So
I think he was the perfect client. I really do. I don't think it was his fault, but I think that they knew that Father Kenny, I don't know if anybody else would do the same thing. They knew that he would obey them, not fight them.
Unfortunately, I was not given permission to speak with Father Kenny.
Now, if it was a problem where the subsidy was too much for the church, why weren't the parents, who are the ones paying the tuition, weren't given the opportunity to actually find the money?
Well, first of all, the PPP loan was a unique CARES Fund Act that is not an annual opportunity. And the second PPP loan had much tighter restrictions that the school did not qualify for. So we're talking about trying to plug something year over year. So each year there would be this issue of trying to find $250,000, and it's not feasible. And the amount of time and resources when you have the opportunity for continued Catholic education a few miles in either direction.
A few miles that as a so-called merger, the diocese or the church has not taken into consideration the logistics of a change like this and the cost for the families.
The parish or the diocese should support this so-called merger by providing funding for things like substantial uniform stipends for each child, no-cost transportation to and from the Divine Mercy parking lot to their schools, monetary coverage for any increase in tuition or any other expenses beyond what would be paid to attend DMCA, and assets like technology, furniture, 3D printers that were purchased with PACE funds or donated specifically for DMCA students should follow the students or the teachers to their new schools. And if the parish and the school split the cost of any equipment and the parish wants to keep that asset, then they should reimburse that money and distribute it to teachers and staff.
Based on the video that was uploaded to YouTube, they took it down, the one with the numbers, and that it was the first time he was actually explaining the process or the imminent closure of the school. Now, in terms of the documentation of the process itself, is that going to be something that can be shared to the parents so that everyone can know, you know what, these are the numbers, this is what happened, this is why it happened, and actually like just close that chapter in their lives, because that's what they're asking, because they feel that there's lack of transparency, there's lack of communication between the diocese, between the parish, there's this back and forth. This hasn't been a normal year per se. So is there some way that you and some of the leaders of the diocese and the leaders of the church will actually be able to get together and just talk to these parents?
They have. Father Kenny last weekend, for every parishioner, and the parents, if they are parishioners and attending church, got that information. Father Kenny has met with the school board members. He's met with the endowment board members. He's met with other parents outside of church, after church. So that has occurred. Numbers were given. The information in his original letter explained the factors that caused that. So now we are moving forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Pfeiffer. This is Phyllis Mann from the Office of Catholic Schools of the Diocese of Orlando. You and I spoke last week, and I said that I would speak to Mr. Fortier about your request for a meeting. Unfortunately, he is not going to be meeting regarding the Divine Mercy decision, as it is final. But I did want to call because I said I would. So I hope you have a pleasant day. Thank you.
As we reach out to the diocese and as we reach out to Henry Fortier, he hasn't responded to, I've sent 2 letters asking a lot of questions. And I guess he's picking and choosing who he responds to. And if it has to do with trying to save Divine Mercy, he says that decision's final, although he continues to say that's not his decision. So I'm not sure how he can say that decision is final when it's not his decision to make. But either way, he says that he's not responding to letters about saving the school. Well, the last letter I sent him really didn't have anything to do with saving the school. It had to do with, what working groups were put together, what demographic information was studied, what reports were written, what documentation is there from any meetings that were had. This is such a significant decision. It seems like those things would have been done. And he hasn't responded. And, I think if you look at transparent leaders in history, nobody was more transparent than Jesus. And it feels like this decision was made, and then everybody hides and won't talk to the parents about the way that it was done. And to me, that's not the way Jesus would have led.
Now, these families are going into the different schools. What's the lifespan of these Catholic schools now? Like, are they in trouble as well?
Not from my perspective, no. This was a single situation that was discussed for the past 10 years. There have been no other discussions.
Do you think it has been handled, the crisis itself? Crisis because there's been a lot of media coverage. Do you think this has been handled correctly?
I don't know if there is a correct way to handle a situation when it means for people feeling like they're losing a home. And I understand that for our families, they feel like they're losing their home. And so that is never going to be an easy process.
And hey, we're all human, and I get it. And maybe they look back and go, okay, there are some things we could have done differently. It'd be nice if they just came out to us and said, hey, we're sorry because, we had to do this, but we didn't realize this, or this, or maybe, we could have done this, or this. It would be nice if they just had the humility to admit, hey, we kind of messed up in a few spots and we're sorry, but this is where we're at now. And, what can we help you with? And to work collaboratively with us instead of creating this us versus them that I feel like was created out of necessity. We want questions. They're not giving answers. There's the us versus them. If they had just been forthcoming with answers to our questions right from the start, even if we'd have still been mad, at least they can say they were transparent. And even if they said, hey, we messed up, then it's on us to forgive because it's okay to mess up. We're human. But it seems like they don't want to admit that they messed up.
As the families of DMCA continue on to the next chapter of their lives, questions such as, will the Diocese of Orlando and other dioceses across the nation continue their business as normal, closing schools without giving parents notice, without giving parents the chance to save their schools, or will they start acting just as Jesus Christ would want them to and help serve the community, communicate, and always tell the truth? In Brevard County, I'm Vanessa Green.